It's actually nuts, this story, when you go a little bit deeper into it, because 2 music festivals in the US are suing Lyte for losses of more than $300,000 after this company's sudden closure, and they are alleging the business had shifted into a large-scale ticket scalping operation. When Cam messaged me about it, and I replied with an expletive-laden message, and it was just like, it's a council-supported event. How does that work? How do they not have this part of it worked out? It is the most Central Coast Council thing to have ever happened, I think.
Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest.
But you had a story about a suburb that I hadn't heard of.
Well, it wasn't a suburb. It was, you know the suburb for sure. It was just a shopping centre in said suburb you might not have heard of.
So what's a suburb?
So I was in Green Hills Shopping Centre, which is at East Maitland, over the weekend. And I went into JB Hi-Fi up there at the shopping centre. And lo and behold, I see a poster for Rolling Sets Festival.
In East Maitland?
Yeah. I was like, I mean, it made sense to me, but I just not where I was expecting to see it.
I suppose not, but yeah, I wouldn't expect to see that in East Maitland at all. But given they've lost Groove in the Moo, that might be.
That's what I thought. Maybe
closer.
Maybe, I mean, Newcastle. What festivals do they have coming up?
I don't know, because
once again, Coastie Boys are number one. So immediately into sport talk.
Exactly right. Yeah, no, we got to go sports. We got to start with sports. I mean, it's been a bad week for the good guys of sports. Cronulla lost in the NRL finals.
Cronulla are hardly the good guys.
They are the good guys, Cameron.
In your eyes.
The Swans lost the AFL Grand Final.
Yeah, Swannies losing was rough.
And the Wallabies lost against the All Blacks.
Didn't know about the Wallabies. But Chelsea defeated Brighton 4-2 on Monday morning. So that was, again, debatable of the good guys, I guess, depending on who you are. But, East Maitland, Rolling Sets Festival. I saw it there and I thought, that's cool. Good on the Rolling Sets team for getting the posters out, beyond just the Central Coast.
Yeah, and as we reported on several music newses ago, Rolling Sets is bucking the trend of all the festivals going down the shitter in recent months and years here in Australia. The other festival that we had touted next to Rolling Sets for also bucking that trend was Lost Paradise, and we come to you with another music news, and it's not that Lost Paradise hasn't been bucking the trend, but it has encountered a pretty significant hurdle, it seems, and there's a lot of unresolved questions about its ticketing platform.
Yeah, so if you hadn't heard this story, Lost Paradise, obviously a New Year's festival at Glenworth Valley, Glenning Valley. They're so similar but so different in suburbs.
No, Glenworth.
It was, yes, it is Glenworth Valley. Glenning Valley is out near sort of Tumby, Berkeley, around that area. Glenworth.
You can't have 2 Glen Valleys in the Central Coast.
Oh, no.
It's their first issue.
Yeah, that's not my fault. Absolutely not. But yeah, at Glenworth Valley, Lost Paradise, and they were using an American ticketing platform called Lyte, Lyte, and they posted onto their socials about a week ago saying that they were aware that Lyte were currently offline, and they were aware of the news stories reporting that the company has gone under. They were communicating with Lyte's senior team. They said it didn't help understand exactly what has happened. As of recording, which is Monday evening, there hasn't been an update on the ticketing issue with Lost Paradise, but Lyte going under and Lost Paradise aren't the only festival impacted by this as well.
No, so Rabbits Eat Lettuce, which is a festival held in southeast Queensland that runs over the Easter long weekend, has also been impacted by this. Rabbits Eat Lettuce is more electronic. I suppose so is Lost Paradise, but Rabbits Eat Lettuce definitely more electronic festival. And Eric Lemire, the director of that festival, actually spoke to the ABC Triple J's Hack, and he said he was immediately looking for other options because it just didn't feel right after Lyte suddenly just went down and went dark on everyone, including the events that used it.
Yeah, and they've got massive international events that Lyte use as well, like Coachella use Lyte, Pitchfork, Electric Forest, New York Comic Con, and a bunch more all use Lyte. So the fact that they went under seemingly out of nowhere obviously caught Lost Paradise by surprise, and no doubt, I mean, there could already be an announcement by the time you hear this on Thursday, but no doubt they are working in the background to try and resolve this. People are hypothesizing whether that could spell the end of Lost Paradise for this year, because that's just half expected when festivals are announced that they're not going to go ahead in 2024. But no doubt they are working on alternatives in the background, one of which could potentially be Humanitics.
Yeah, Humanitics, we were told about by Joel Leggett. I mean, we've seen it, but we were told about its ins and outs by Joel Leggett when we had a chat to him. So if you want to hear Joel Leggett talking about Humanitics in a completely, genuinely non-sponsored segment, go check out that conversation. But it was, it does sound like a really good option. It actually gives the artist, from what we can gather, like the ability to directly message a fan who is chasing a refund or things like that, which is kind of like giving that connection point between artist and fan, which I think is really good. But yeah, this is really, it's actually nuts, this story, when you go a little bit deeper into it, because this was a company, Lyte, that was founded back in 2014. As you said, Cam, it's worked with and festivals have used its services, like some of the biggest in the world, like Coachella. And Taylor is that CEO. He founded it back in 2014. In 2021, it was said to have been growing really, really bigly, really quickly and bigly. Anyway, that's the new word for the day. US music magazine Billboard has now reported that Ant Taylor has resigned and that Lyte has laid off its staff, which is leaving concert promoters unpaid for hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of tickets sold on the platform. And this is where it gets concerning for events like Lost Paradise. But what gets even more nuts for this story is that Billboard also reported 2 music festivals in the US. One of them is called Lost Land, which is in Ohio. The other one is called North Coast in Chicago, are suing Lyte for losses of more than $300,000 after this company's sudden closure. And they are alleging the business had shifted into a large-scale ticket scalping operation. So they reported that documents from these lawsuits show Lyte's main source of revenue came from working directly with promoters to scalp hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of VIP tickets for their events. So Lyte would resell the tickets at large markups and split the profit with the promoter, because not only was Lyte a general ticket selling platform, it was also like a resale platform. Like, why can I not think of it? I've used it before. The other really good one we have in Australia that allows you to resell tickets.
I was thinking like the Ticketek marketplace or something like
Tixel.
that.
Tixel is the name of it. I've used it a number of times. It's very good.
I was going to say Tixel, but the problem is there's that many dodgy ones that I couldn't remember if Tixel were a genuine one or a dodgy one. So I'm glad you were able to clarify that they were actually the good, genuine kind.
Yeah, no, they are the good ones. It's just Viagogo and now Lyte that we need to stay away from. But yeah, it's what they're basically saying is that Lyte were working with promoters to buy and then resell and mark up drastically the price of VIP tickets, presumably for rich people to go and buy at higher prices and then splitting the profit. So effectively scalping, which I'm sure it's illegal in Australia. I'm sure there's some legal issues there. And this is all tied up in a lawsuit. So what's gone from initially looking like, okay, this company might have gone bust, has gone to actually they were up to something a lot more nefarious. And what's most concerning is we don't know the ins and outs of how this has worked for an event like Lost Paradise, for example. They sold their tickets through that platform. So, you know, when Cameron Smith buys a ticket to Lost Paradise on the Central Coast, it goes through Lyte. Lyte get the money. Do they give it to Lost Paradise straight away, or have they held all of the ticket sale money and then gone under and taken it with them? That would be the worst case scenario for Lost Paradise in this case, but we just don't know what's gone on.
And I guess this is sort of tying into those lawsuits over in America, right? The reason one of the reasons that they're suing them for $330,000 is in lost revenue. So potentially, yeah, they were holding on to the money earned from tickets and then not passing it on to the festivals themselves. And it does also raise questions that the people who purchase the tickets through Lyte, are your tickets going to be valid for the festival as well, especially now that Lyte has seemingly gone bust? Maybe it's, if you bought a ticket, too bad, you'll have to buy another one through whoever they partner with next, because Lyte have laid off all of their staff. CEO has resigned, facing lawsuit. It's not looking good for Lyte, and as such, not looking good for Lost Paradise.
No, and this is just like, man, like a kick in the guts, because we were saying at the top, like we were touting Rolling Sets and Lost Paradise as some rare at the moment examples of festivals that seem to be bucking the trend in terms of getting that support and doing well. And then when we finally have some that are ducking and weaving through the absolute crap that is, affecting Australian festivals at the moment, this happens, and it really doesn't feel fair, because you have to hope that they're insured, and they're insured for something like this. But as we said, the worst case scenario is they've sold, 70, 80% of their tickets through this platform. They haven't got all that money back, and then that company's gone under with all that money. If they're not covered for that, we could be looking at no festival. Hopefully they are covered for that, but it's concerning. And at the very least, they would have lost money for, say, they had a contract upon completion or delivery of the festival. They've paid them X amount of money to be the ticket provider, and they're not going to get that back at the very least, looking at it, because of course you've got probably better resourced, bigger festivals from the country that the company originates from who are launching lawsuits against it. When you look at the list of creditors, when say Lyte liquidates and they go through their assets, they look at the list of creditors, Lost Paradise is going to be, in the 20 down, not in the top 5 of people they're going to pay back. So you can guarantee Lost Paradise, Rabbit's Eat Lettuce are going to lose money in some way or another here. It's just, is it a lot? And if so, is it crippling?
Yeah, hopefully not too badly. We do know, like I said, there could already be a statement out from Lost Paradise between recording and upload. So if there is, maybe there'll be a little, hey, it's us coming in again, like we've done a couple of times on the music news, as a little disclaimer to let you know that a statement has been put out. But keep your eyes on the Lost Paradise socials. I'm sure that, that's where they'll be putting their announcements. We have a statement actually, Cam. We have a statement to issue based on our last music news. Oh, we do. We do. Yeah, It wasn't
Are we going to do that now or not?
Yeah, we might as well. It wasn't necessarily a correction, because it didn't necessarily change too many of the opinions, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But we should, issue that little correction there. It came via our Instagram page, so credit to Gareth Evans, who is a listener and also says he has a violin, so if he's offered for us to borrow it if we ever do decide to make that video of me playing a violin and Eamonn playing piano or something. But you might remember last week on the music news, we were talking about this guy, Michael Smith from Memory's Lane was, who was in his early 50s from America. He created a whole bunch of AI generated music, like hundreds of thousands of songs, put them up to Spotify. He created a whole bot and system where the bots would stream his music, and he ended up over a course of about 7 years getting $10 million in royalty payments. It is fraud. He was charged. In it, Eamonn was backing him a little bit, saying, well, hang on, he's not really taking money from... Do you like how I'm distancing myself? I'm saying Eamonn was backing him, not me. Because he was like, well, he's not
Mr. Snow, just use the last name.
He was saying that he wasn't taking any money from genuine musicians, because all the streams generated were bots. People weren't actually listening to his songs. Therefore, the statement that the judge made saying that the money was taken from people who would have actual hardworking musicians, Eamonn's gone, well, that's bullshit, because the streams that he generated wouldn't affect that. Turns out we had a little misunderstanding of how the Spotify pays based on, it's not really pay per stream.
No. How it actually works, and again, we really appreciate the message to let us know genuinely, like not being like, we're not like, oh my God, can't believe you corrected us. We're actually happy to be corrected. It's really good to have like our audience hit us up and help us with these things. So thank you. But yeah, basically the way it works is based on an amount of revenue that Spotify earn over a financial year. That is then dictates how much they pay people. So that's why it's so hard. And this has helped connect this dot in my head too. That's why it's so hard for them to say, oh, this is how much we pay per stream, because it actually does vary dependent on Spotify's revenue generally over I assume, a financial year. And so when we were saying, well, actually, it doesn't affect anyone. It doesn't affect the artist anyway. It actually did. It does mean that they got paid a little bit less because he'd been skimming 10 million over X amount of years. So Gareth, thank you for that message. Now, this might be me just doubling down here, but I thought, okay, that's actually not ideal. And then I was like, oh, well, how many artists will be monetized on Spotify? So this isn't concrete data, so we'll probably get another message to correct it.
There's another correction coming next week.
There's estimated to be about 11 million artists and creators on the Spotify platform. And they reckon probably anywhere between 20 and 40% of those get paid. So let's just say 4 million or so of those get paid. You're basically, he took like $1, if that, from each artist. So it isn't great that he took from the artist, and that, I mean, broadly, like, you know, morally, it's probably not great that he took from the artist, but it's not like this was a difference between this band recording another album or not. It was literally probably $1 from every artist that was monetized over that period. So, yeah, again, very much appreciative for that clarification, and I was definitely wrong in saying they don't take from the artist. But then I thought about it and I was like, well, it doesn't really change my opinion too much, which is why we didn't issue an immediate correction, because I still think that Spotify are the baddest guy in this scenario.
Yeah, so effectively it's 70% of their revenue is what they share with the artists, which, as you said, Eamon, which is why the pay per stream number will fluctuate a little bit, because it's based on the total revenue that they earn. And then obviously, if, you know, Michael Smith had hundreds of thousands of streams per day, then he's getting paid for those hundreds and thousands of streams, and that is potentially being taken away from other musicians who genuinely made music and got streamed on their songs. But yeah, little correction there. Thank you again to Gareth for reaching out and hitting us up via Instagram. You can do so as well if you want to have your thoughts or opinions or make a correction on anything that we've mentioned. Instagram is the best place, at Homebrewed Media. We've got another local festival to talk about, unless you have anything further you want to touch on regarding Lost Paradise, Eamon?
No, we are going to change tack from Lost Paradise. I suppose the last thing I want to say is I really hope that they're covered for this, and that this, like, it would just be, you couldn't write the kick in the guts that this would be if it led to something drastic like the festival having to postpone, cancel or whatever for the year, or if it suffered significant losses. So we really hope that doesn't occur, but we are going to change tack.
It just feels
wishing
like
Lost Paradise the best.
Sorry, before we do, I know I said I'm done. If you have anything else, I just want to say, off the back of that, it does just feel like Aussie music festivals are cursed or something, because it feels like so many festivals, for what is out of their control, by and large, there seems to just be something go wrong which causes a cancellation or a postponement or something.
Yeah. It genuinely does, and what we're about to talk about is further evidence of the cursed nature of Australian festivals, because Long Jetty Festival, the fantastic street festival that's been held over quite a few years in Long Jetty, has had to postpone all the way until 2025 this year, because they couldn't get their DA approved by the council, who also supports the event, which I just thought was dumbfounding. Obviously, there's more details here, but in a nutshell, they've said it's with a heavy heart that we announce a postponement of Long Jetty Festival 2024. Despite successfully hosting this event for years, activating the streets and the community of Long Jetty without incident, our new DA has been declined by the council with the backing of police. We know many of you have questions. They've rescheduled to March 30th, 2025, giving them time needed to work on a 5-year DA to ensure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, so Long Jetty Festival happened last year. They were originally planned to happen again in April this year. They then pushed it back and said, no, we're going to go bigger and better. October long weekend, here we come. And then obviously since they made that decision, they've been working away in the background to try and get DA approval from council. And as such, the news came out it was Friday, the 27th of September, that the news was released. Council had their final decision on it on the 26th of September. So I know there were some people wondering why announce it when you're a week away from the festival actually going ahead. I believe, and I don't believe in the statement anywhere, but I believe the reason they waited until the very last minute was because they were hoping that it would be approved and then that the festival can just go ahead as planned. They're probably working away on secondary dates and, backup plans in case the DA wasn't approved. And that's obviously how it's transpired. But I just want to give a little bit of background. I was chatting to a co-worker on Friday and I was like, he's like, what are you doing for the long weekend? And I was like, I want to check out Long Jetty Festival. He goes, who's playing? And I was like, I can't remember. I'll look it up. Went on their website and then I see a statement about it being cancelled. And I was like, hang on, have I missed something? Went on their Instagram page and there was no announcement at that point. And I've gone, this is literally breaking news. And I've just stumbled across it because I was talking to a co-worker about the lineup. And then, a couple minutes later, they put out an Instagram post. I put up a video on our Instagram page announcing it as well because I was like, this is breaking news. And it was big news because, as you mentioned, Street Festival, it was the October long weekend. The Dregs were one of the headliners on it. There was a bunch of local acts as well. Last year, they had Meg Mac and the Rubens perform at the festival as well. So it's a really cool local event. But as I mentioned, postponed until March 2025. They are working on applying for a 5-year DA as well. So I assume similar to how the Love Lanes Festival is always sort of the second February of the year. It is another thing where they close down the streets of Wyong and there's live music and food carts, all that sort of stuff. I'm assuming their 5-year DA will also be, the final Sunday in March every year or something along those lines. But they are working on a 5-year DA, so hopefully there's no more hiccups like what's transpired.
Yeah, and I think to call it a hiccup is probably a bit of an understatement. As you said, the Dregs were set to headline that along with Coterie, a bunch of really, really good local acts. I think it was, we had Sun Soli, Smart Casual, Velvet Youth, Hand Models, Joel Leggett was going to be playing there, Dead Shows were going to be playing there, Mindy Lou. There was a whole bunch. It was shaping up really, really well. And they expanded the lineup for this long weekend edition. But when Cam messaged me about it and I replied with an expletive-laden message, it was just like, it's a council-supported event. How does that work? How do they not have this part of it worked out? It is the most Central Coast Council thing to have ever happened, I think. And where, and that's not to heap too much on Central Coast Council. We do have a lot of love for their cultural team who do really good things to do things exactly like this on the Central Coast. So it wasn't the people with the passion in the building that made that happen. It was clearly some regulatory hurdles that they weren't able to get over. Just for a bit more context, they've said on their website in the statement that the police and council concerns included timing with the NRL, that being the NRL Grand Final, which is on Sunday, and the area being too busy being the long weekend, capacity concerns, unfit festival site for the numbers that attend, zoning issues, parking issues, unreasonable demands on services, pedestrian impacts and safety, lack of police resources, among a list of other concerns. And on a real small scale, Cam and I know from having done some work with and for the council in the past that, even to do a really small kind of activation in a public place through the council, you have to go through, a thorough kind of process of risk assessments, of approvals and things like that. So I can sympathise that an event on the scale of Long Jetty Festival would have had to have a lot of, I's dotted and T's crossed. But it just seems like this is something we just didn't need to end up in this situation. There surely was a way to have this happen, and they did postpone it all the way back here. So with all that time, you would have thought that they were able to make something happen. Of course, that's without knowing what went on. But from the outside, it's just really hard to imagine how these two parties couldn't have worked together, and the police couldn't have worked together with all the notice they had to make sure that this was going to be viable.
Yeah, and look, all the objections that you mentioned about, lack of parking, obviously, because they're closing down the streets of Long Jetty. So it would be quite a big disruptor to traffic. I can understand what they're saying. It's the same day as the NRL Grand Final on a long weekend. It was going to be busy, but surely there would have been some sort of conversation when they initially postponed it to that weekend about, hey, do you think this could be viable? I mean, there might not have been. We don't know, the exact conversations and discussions that would have happened between council, the Long Jetty Festival organisers and police. So I can understand some of the concerns that the police and council have put forward. But as you mentioned, Eamon, it feels like surely there could have been some sort of workaround or alterations to plans to make sure that it could have gone ahead.
Yes, yeah, 100%. And just for some context, Long Jetty Fest on their website, I would encourage everyone to go on to longjettyfestival.com.au and read the statement. But they have some Q&As, like some FAQs that are probably going to help answer some of our questions. Is this the first event needing a DA? No, this is the fifth event of the same nature. I think that's part of the sticking point. They're saying this is pretty much what we've done every other time. What's the difference? Why was the DA not approved before advertising? And I have heard this, kind of in the rumor mill, in the people talking on the ground, that people were saying, well, the reason it was postponed initially was because they didn't get the DA approved, not because they wanted to expand it, and they should have had it ready. And what Long Jetty Fest is saying is that most years the festival DA is not approved until just prior to the event taking place. I have heard of this being the case for a lot of things. Like it's not like you have months notice of your DA being approved. It's just expected that it will. Last year it was approved on the day before the event, they're saying. So I don't think it's unreasonable for them to not have had that DA locked down ahead of kind of promoting and advertising it, because they had every reason to believe it would happen. They said the DA was submitted back in July, so there's been a couple of months for that to be worked through. The police deemed the festival unsafe for the long weekend because they're saying they don't have enough resources and the NRL is on, as in the grand final.
I do like the wording on that, just to sort of be like, oh, look, the footy's on, so we can't do it. Like I said, I can sympathise with the lack of resources and the arguments in it, but I do just like the bluntness of that. And it goes back to so many other conversations we've had about sport always taking over from music, and the circle just sort of continues with this. But I did like the sort of passive statement, this passive tone in the statement.
Yeah. And they're saying the road closures were already approved and paid for as well. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it came down largely to the police resources, and I understand you need to have police. I don't know. And the part of me wants to just go, mate, it's Long Jetty Festival. I don't think there's going to be tremendous crowd issues. I think you are genuinely going to have more issues with people coming out of pubs pissed off that their team lost the grand final, or blind drunk because their team won the grand final. But yeah, I mean, if there just wasn't enough to spread, then that's fair enough. But again, you're just coming back to this same thing. Council, police, like you've had months together. You worked together to deliver this event. How was it not possible to find some workaround, or say, okay, you might have to scale this bit back so that we can, have the appropriate amount of police numbers or whatever. And that's not like putting it on the festival itself. It's just like these regulatory frameworks seem like they're prohibitive in this kind of example. And then obviously there's a whole bunch of bands that are affected by this, a whole bunch of vendors. Of course, the programming would have been done. The preparation would have been well underway. So there's a whole lot of people that have been hard at work expecting this to be delivered, only to find out literally 7 days before that it's not going to be going ahead. So it's just obviously not a situation that anybody wants, but just very disappointing more than anything.
And you mentioned the amount of paperwork that we have gone through just to do really small activations in a public place. Can you imagine the amount of hours that the Long Jetty Festival team would have spent trying to get this DA through? They said it was submitted in July this year, so they've had a couple of months to back and forth on this. And the licensed area was now 18 plus, and in their FAQ section, they say that the police deemed the family-friendly festival not friendly enough to allow it. And on the funding, you mentioned that it was a council-backed event. They were sponsored by council. They did receive a grant of $20,000, but that was subject to the DA approval, so they're yet to receive the $20,000 because obviously the DA hasn't been approved. So back to your point about vendors and artists and everyone who was sort of already lined up to do this, they're not going to be compensated because the festival has been pushed back, but all of these artists and vendors would have had this long weekend booked away in their timeline for this festival, which is now not going ahead on the long weekend. Hopefully a lot of these people can find other arrangements so they can still get an income, but if they can't, I mean, I guess they've got the long weekend off. Probably not what they were wanting to do. I don't know. I'm trying to find a silver lining in not getting paid for work that you booked out in your calendar for.
Time off work is always good, I guess, for most people. I mean, apart from the fact that if you're not making money, it's not ideal. But I mean, maybe it's a good break. But either way, I did see a really good thing in the Long Jetty community Facebook group where someone was like, okay, all the vendors that were going to be there, post your business here on this thread, and everybody can follow you, try and patronize you. Where if you have a shop front, or if you're operating out of somewhere else, people can come and kind of, show their support by buying some stuff off you. So I don't know how accessible that is for our listeners, but it might be a good idea just to have a look at who was going to be there as vendors and see if there's a way that you can go and support them, because there'd be a lot of losses going on. Of course, their participation in the event is going to be valid for the next iteration on 30th of March 2025, which is great, but obviously there's a lot of time between now and then. It's just disappointing all round. And I guess we've spoken kind of so much on this show over many years about issues with regulation in New South Wales. And I don't know how much it's tied into that, but we know that I guess this is the kind of stuff that they're trying or are making efforts to unpick in the New South Wales State Parliament, at least. How much that flows down to the Central Coast Council and these kind of events, we don't know. But it is another example of these things need to be much simpler. And they just don't need, they shouldn't be this complicated, particularly when this event has run, as it said, 5 near identical DAs in the past. So it's not like you're starting from scratch. You could go back and say, okay, what made this work last time? What can we do? We've had all of this notice that just, we can't have this happening. And it literally stifles and stymies culture when this occurs. Every time that something like this happens, then there's bands missing out on opportunity. There's humans in the crowd missing out on opportunities to see and be inspired by those bands and soak up culture and derive this serotonin and happiness that comes from being amongst these things. Obviously, vendors lose money. Heaps of people lose money as well. But there's a whole experience there, one that could be defining for artists or for punters or everyone in between. It could be a defining day in your life, and it's ripped from you and postponed, not certain to happen in the same way again because the DA couldn't get approved because of effectively regulation and red tape that feels excessive. And again, we don't know what happened behind the scenes. There could be the super duper legitimate reason, but based on what the festival is saying, it doesn't really sound that way.
I just want to give a quick little, shout out to on their statement, they said that they were fortunate to receive advice, support, and general guidance from a lot of people involved. Some of which are local MPs, David Meehan, who is the member for the Entrance, and Liesl Tesh, the member for Gosford. They both publicly endorsed the festival in Parliament. Also, David Harris, who's the member for Wyong and the Minister of the Central Coast. They were all in support, which it's not often that we give a shout out to politicians when it comes to music festivals, but at least our local politicians seemingly were right behind this one. Obviously, Mitch Wilson, who's the CEO of Festivals Australia, Josh and Lauren from Mushroom, Greg Carey, who is just an all-round legend. He's also the president of Central Coast Music and Arts Committee. There's a whole bunch there, including, local businesses and their sponsors and all of that, who have, really helped them and supported them throughout their venture. So I just want to give a quick little shout out too, because it's not, it's not just a festival pushing back against council and policing. There was a lot of people on their side, some of which you might not have necessarily expected to be there. Although that said, I think a lot of the local MPs are very pro anything positive happening in the community, and Long Jetty Festival is obviously that. On a selfish personal note, actually the festival being postponed works out quite well for Eamon and I, because we were both separately going to be away from the Central Coast over the long weekend. And I do wonder how many other people who would have gone might have also been away. So it could potentially be a little blessing or silver lining potentially for the festival.
It's definitely silver lining for us. Selfishly, I'm away for a Bucks weekend this weekend, so I was going to miss it, which I was pretty annoyed about, because I missed it last year as well because I was at a festival elsewhere. So I really wanted to catch this one. So great that it's going to be an option in 2025, but I suppose it would have been anyway had this gone ahead. I still feel overwhelmingly disappointed for everyone involved and frustrated that these things happen. But yeah, maybe you're getting it's going to build the excitement a little bit more. People are going to have that pent up, like, come on, we've been wanting this. And I suppose another silver lining is that surely after this experience, it won't happen again. Something like this won't happen again. So there's going to be lessons learned, things we put in place. As I said, they're going for a 5-year DA now to make sure that they can kind of go forth with confidence moving forward. So hopefully, that means that this won't be occurring again. But also, you're not holding your breath, because we've seen more egregious things happen.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, right? Like, there's no guarantee that the DA will be approved by the time March comes around next year. I mean, it sounds like it should, because all the objections were around too many people because it's a long weekend and not enough policing resources because it's a long weekend, the footy's on. So at least in March, when they are planning to do this again, you're eliminating a lot of the factors and pushback from council and police. So hopefully it should be approved, but we also don't necessarily know what's going to happen in the Australian music landscape between now and March. Locally as well, maybe the festival going ahead might have actually solidified other things moving forward into 2025. But at the moment, there's just so much up in the air, you can't really be too sure.
No, you genuinely can't. We're fortunately, but unfortunately, never out of things to talk about on the music news with regard to that. Often Cam and I will be like looking at the stories and we'll go, look, we actually can't talk about that for another week because we've covered it too much, even when there's developments. But we will keep you updated with how these things transpire. A bit of uncertainty for two very good Central Coast-based festivals. So we send our love and support to Lost Paradise and Long Jetty Festival. We can't wait to see Long Jetty Fest back better than ever, and we, for the love of holy things, hope that Lost Paradise is covered and that Lyte, that situation is resolved in the best way it can be. But yeah, that is the music news for your day, for your night, for your afternoon, for your evening. And if you've liked what you heard, head to our website, homebrewed.au. We have heaps of stuff up there that's similar.
Yeah, plenty of premieres and some of our favourite music releases of the past fortnight. Maybe we can also end this podcast with the way we started it, and also remind you to look forward to Rolling Sets Festival in December. I haven't seen if it's sold out or not, but it's bloody close if it hasn't.
Last I saw it was like 80%, so it's a foregone conclusion that it will. Oh, look, I just have my Instagram. The first thing there's a Rolling Sets post. Rolling Sets Festival is 90% sold out. There you go.
So you can still get tickets,
foregone
but
conclusion that it will sell out.
Getting close, getting soon.
It's coming up. Just bloody rock up to there, would you?
Doing a
Memorial Park, December 7th.
Yeah, get there. I was going to make a reference, but I'll just move on. Get there. Get around us. No podcast on Monday for the long weekend. Not that we deserve the time off, but we want it, so we're going to take it. We'll catch you in a few. Well,
I think we deserve the time off. At least one of us does. But yeah, sorry, Cam, as you were. We will be off next
Hang
Monday.
on. Who are you saying deserves the time off? You or me?
Both of us.
Well, you said at least one of us. So I thought you were maybe pointing the finger and saying, well, one of us is working a lot harder than the other.
No. I said at least one of us thinks that we deserve the time off.
Sorry, I thought you said one of us deserves time off. And I was like, hang on. I need to unpack this.
The whole point of the argument is that we actually do work hard for this outside of our 40 to 50 hour a week day job. So I feel no guilt in having some time off. But you can catch all of our stuff on homebrewed.au. And we'll have plenty still on the socials for you to look at and stuff in that time. Yeah, how was that? I know you enjoyed it. You really, really liked it. Anyway, if you like what you have heard and you want to see more, www.homebrewed.au is the place to find it. And of course, all of our work is done on Darkinjung country. We pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. We will see you next time.